Hi there, Hillary here for Waterlogged on behalf of saltwateraquarium.com. Today's video is going to be part 2 of the things that you need to start up a saltwater aquarium. Now, if you haven't already caught part 1, make sure to go back and watch that, because that is a list of 10 things that are absolute must-haves when getting your saltwater tank set up and going. Today's list is going to be things that you can add to your tank, but that aren't necessarily things that you have to get started. These are just things that are going to make your life a little bit easier as you go along. All right, the first item on my list today is a skimmer, or a protein skimmer as it's sometimes called. These are going to help remove the dissolved organic compounds that are in your water into a collection cup that you will empty several times a week or as it gets full. Now, you might be asking what dissolved organic compounds are. Basically, when your fish are consuming food, they're producing waste. As that waste breaks down, it dissolves out into the water. You can't see it, but it's there, and it really shouldn't be kept in the tank because it's not necessarily clean. So you're going to use a protein skimmer to help remove that. You don't necessarily need protein skimmer in all tanks, and especially in some of the smaller tanks, it's hard to find a space for them. But one tank that I would definitely recommend having one is if you've got a Fowler tank with messy fish like triggerfish or puffers. A great thing to have in your tank is a skimmer. It will really help you keep your nutrients in check. All right, the second item on my list today is an ATO, or an auto top off. Basically, this is a little sensor that you put in your tank, and when the water level of the tank drops below that point, it's going to trigger a pump to turn on and top off your tank with water. This is really great if you live in a drier climate, if you keep your house pretty warm, and you have a lot of water evaporation fluctuations. There's a lot of fish and coral that you might be keeping that are sensitive to these things, so having an ATO on your tank is going to help to keep your salinity stable and your tank inhabitants happy. Okay, number 3 on my list today is a doser, or a dosing pump. A lot of these are not something that I would necessarily recommend in the beginning, but especially if you have a lot of corals and invertebrates that are utilizing things like calcium in the water column, setting up a dosing pump can also help to keep those levels stable, much like the ATO pump does. Okay, moving on is a media reactor. Media reactors are things that typically you see in larger systems in the sumps. A lot of times they are helping to keep your nutrients and your water parameters balanced and keep things under control. So again, not necessarily something you're going to need in the beginning, but as you progress and get further into your reef keeping journey, it's something that you might want to think about. Moving on to number 5, and that is a UV sterilizer. Now, UV sterilizer is great to help keep your water clean and pure, but it's not really going to do a lot of good for issues that you have that are in the substrate or on the rockwork. But if you got sick fish, it's a really good thing. In fact, it's something that I might even recommend you keep in the fish closet, if you will, in case of an emergency. If you need to hook it up on a quarantine tank, it is very helpful. Just know that if you've got a UV sterilizer, it's going to kill off the good stuff as well as the bad, so maybe consider dosing some beneficial bacteria in addition to using that, and maybe don't run it 100% of the time. All right, next up is an RODI unit. This is one of those things that I wish I had gotten a lot earlier on in keeping aquariums. Basically, you are going to hook these up to your tap water, and it's going to remove all of the things in your water that shouldn't be there and make it ready for you to mix salt water. Not only can you mix salt water, but you can quickly and easily fill up containers for your top off. When you are looking to get an RODI unit, you probably only need a 3 or a 4 stage, but if you've got room and you don't mind spending a little bit extra, you can always go up in size. And the filters are pretty easy to change out, so you can go ahead and get a couple of those when you are purchasing your unit. Okay, the next item on my list is going to be something if you enjoy technology or if you travel a lot, if you like to stay connected on your phone, something that you might want to consider, and that is a controller. Now, if you have a system kind of like this Red Sea tank here, it's not necessarily a controller, but you can control everything from the app. However, there are controllers like the Hydros where you plug everything up and you can run it through the app. It's going to help make sure you're dosing, it's going to take care of your lights, and you can even get some that measure your water parameters and check to see where things are at. So if you like all that sort of technology, or again, if you travel and you want to be able to monitor your tank while you're away, a controller is something that might be for you. Speaking of things that are going to help take care of your tank while you're away, an auto feeder is another great item to have for your tank. Perfect for when you go on vacation, or if you have fish that like to eat constantly, that need to eat multiple times throughout the day. An auto feeder is a great way to make sure that everybody stays fed. Just make sure to test it out over a bowl before you test it out over the tank so you don't accidentally dump a bunch of food in your tank that you don't need to. Moving on, number 9 is a refugium. You might hear people talk about refugiums and how they have them, but not all tanks are set up to have refugiums. Typically, you're gonna only see these on larger tanks that have sumps. So this tank behind me, basically, it's a light over a specific area and you are going to grow different types of algae that you can harvest and pull out. This is another way to manage and control your nutrients. So if that is something that you're interested in, maybe consider that when you're planning out your system. You might not want to do that on a small tank, but maybe a larger tank would be best for you. Okay, the 10th and final item on my list today is a roller filter. If you do a lot of traveling, or if you don't like having your hands in the tank doing maintenance all the time, a roller filter might be for you. You would use this in place of something like filter socks. So the way it works is you put it in the tank, the water flows through the filter fleece, and as the fleece gets clogged, it rolls out some new fleece, collects that dirty fleece, and has a continual process so that you don't have to do the work. So if that's something that interests you, definitely take a look. In the last year, there's been some new releases and different sizes that have come out, so there might even be one for some of the smaller tanks that you might have. All right, that is going to conclude the list of 10 things that you can add to your tank to help make your life a little bit easier and things that you might want to have on your saltwater system. All right, this has been Hillary for Waterlogged on behalf of saltwateraquarium.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.